I'm Sean White, and today we're meditating on being an emotional train wreck. So did you know that there's no scientific consensus on what an emotion is? It's true. Look it up. Go online, look it up. I've come across several different definitions of emotions. And let's see, we got mental states brought on by neurophysiological changes. Lisa Feldman Barrett, in her great book, How Emotions Are Made, called The Manifestations of Reactions. There's a natural instinctive state deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. And I like to call them mental constructs that we create in response to internal and external changes in our lives. So, that being said, if we can't get anybody to agree on exactly what an emotion is, then how are we supposed to be able to understand them and deal with them ourselves? You know, this is what emotional intelligence is, right? The ability to understand and manage not only our emotions, but the emotions of those around us. But if it's such a complex topic, and nobody really has clear understandings, or it's very difficult to have a clear understanding what it is, then how are we going to do this? Because our emotions are, I like to say, like clouds in the skies. They're constantly coming. They're always temporary. If they're not, and you're suffering through chronic negative emotions, then you should probably look to seek help. But most of the time, our emotions, they come and they go, whether they be good ones or bad ones. So that's what I kind of want to get into today. Let's just talk about emotions, not particularly how to deal with them or anything like that, but just try to understand what our emotions kind of are. So let's get started. So emotions are very complex. There's no way around that. How do I know? Because I read books on emotional intelligence. I read books on how emotions are made. I read magazines on the science of emotions. It's a lot. And, you know, if we look at it from the perspective of, the five basic, they say that there's the five basic emotions. If you've ever seen Inside Out, the great Pixar film, there's joy, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger, right? But from there, I mean, those are just the broad strokes. From there, you can go into hundreds or even like thousands. If you really want to delve into it, check out an app called the Universe of Emotions, and you'll be like, wow. But we got to look at it from a couple of different perspectives, right? There's positive emotions, and there's negative emotions. And then on top of that, there's active emotions, and then there's passive emotions. So if you think of like a, kind of like a grid, like a quadrant, like all this stuff gets put into different areas because there can be passive, positive and negatives, and active, positives and negatives. And if you think of like being content as a passive, positive emotion, and being furious like an active, a negative emotion. So there's this entire range of emotions that are going on all the time. So being able to understand and recognize the nuance of those is not always easy as well. So now, if you take into consideration also, the dealing of these emotions and how you get through these emotions. Think about your upbringing, right? Think about the environment that you grew up in. I grew up in a household that we did not talk about our emotions. We were not touchy-feely. I get it now, right? Because I understand my father was the way that he was because of the way that his family was. And I can say the same thing for my mother. My mother was also a very young mother, so she didn't have a lot of real world experience. She was like 22 when she had me. So that kind of becomes hard too. If you're brought up in an environment where you don't really discuss your emotions, then that cycle kind of continues. For me, it took many years, and I had to go through some hard times before I started kind of breaking that whole cycle. And then you start learning how to deal with things a little bit better. But in a lot of cases, that never comes around. So that's going to make it difficult, even to just, if you could figure out what your emotions were, like how to deal with them. Also, I talk about emotions being a mental construct, right? That's my definition, right? We create these emotions, and how do I come to that conclusion? Based on all the things that I've read and the research that I've done. I think there's a lot of agreement that that emotions are a mental state that's brought on by different things. However, I am a different person than you are. You are a different person than other people. So therefore, the way that we create our emotions, our mental constructs of emotions, are going to be different than one another, right? So how I think of anger or sadness or love, or all this, has the potential of being completely different than how you view them, right? If you think about it in different, cultural experiences, there's sometimes where, let's just take grief and mourning and loss. In some cultures, people can be more reserved, right? They get upset, but they internalize it more. They're very, within themselves with it. And in other cultures, there's an outpouring. There's a more active, emotional response, right? Because even though we're saying that these emotions are created in our minds, it doesn't mean that they're not real. They very much are real. They happen, and we will have physical responses to that too. Emotions will elicit a physical response. If you're sad and depressed, you may be crying. You may feel fatigued and not wanting to leave the house and stuff like that. If you're angry, you might get all tense and everything. Where if you're afraid, if you're scared, your pulse might start racing, your heart might start beating faster. So it's not that, just because it's a mental construct doesn't mean it's not actually real. It is very much real. So with all these things, right, it's okay, well, how do I make my emotions, right? How have I been brought up to deal with these emotions? What is the response that I'm getting? This is all difficult enough for yourself. Now, if we talk about, going back to that emotional intelligence, being able to recognize this in other people as well, now this becomes even harder, right? Because the way that I think of things is different than the way that you think of things. So I will immediately think that you should handle stuff the same way that I handle stuff. If you're stressed out about a situation and I'm not the type of person that gets stressed out easily, and you are, I might say that the worst thing in the world to say to somebody who's like, man, just relax. Just relax. It's I don't want to hear that. I'm here, on my stress levels. I don't need you to tell me how to relax. So this is also where emotional intelligence comes into play, right? It's not only being able to understand everything for ourselves, but able to understand it within other people, both individually and collective as a group. How are we supposed to do this, right? It takes a lot. It takes a lot to understand how to have that emotional intelligence, how to walk into a room and read the room, right? The old adage, read the room, Charlie. I don't know why I said Charlie. It could be anybody. If your name is Charlie, well, there's a shout out for you. that becomes like the big problem. And so this is why I'm talking about like being an emotional train wreck, right? I'm not really going to talk today about how do you deal with your emotions, because I can give you basics, right? Like I can teach you like what is it? Tara Brach that had the acronym RAIN for dealing with emotions. So it would be recognize that the emotion is there, allow it to be there, investigate why it's there, and then nurture it, right? We're always trying to get rid of the negative emotions immediately and try to hold on to the positive emotions as long as possible. But like I said, they're like clouds, right? They're going to come and they're going to go. So understanding why the emotion is there will allow you to better deal with that emotion. Because now you can look at the underlying cause of that emotion. Why are you angry? Why are you depressed? Why are you happy? Nobody ever looks at those. Nobody ever looks at the positive emotions and go, my God, why am I so happy? I have to do something about this, right? But it's the negative ones. And so that's what I want you to think about, right? I want you to think about like the different emotions, why those emotions are there, how you deal with the emotions, why you deal with the emotions the way that you do. This is why I said this is being an emotional train wreck, right? I'm not saying that we're all like basket cases, like running around like, laughing one second and crying the next. I'm not talking about like that kind of roller coaster, but I'm just saying that very rarely do we look at what's going on within ourselves and within our emotions. And so that's why I wanted to like talk about that today. Like I mentioned before though, if you are experiencing kind of, long-term negative emotions, whether it be depression, whether it be anger, things along those lines, then I do recommend maybe talking to somebody, even if it just starts off like being like talking with your friends or talking with a therapist, talking with a health coach, talking with your doctor, making sure that, this doesn't turn into something that could end up having much bigger health ramifications. Chronic stress, it can lead to a whole bunch of different things. So take a look at that if you're going through something that's more chronic and long term. But otherwise, just kind of take a look at yourself and try to understand where you're coming from with your emotions, and therefore try to figure out where other people are coming from with their emotions as well. And if you ever need somebody to talk to, I'm around, right? So sign up for a consultation, or you can probably grab my number online and give me a call, and we can like talk about things. So I hope this has given you a little bit of an insight. Although I will admit that this whole episode's a little bit of an emotional train wreck too, right? Because it's such a complex topic. It's like, how do you take all this and condense it down into like 10-15 minutes? It's a difficult one. So I think I got everything that I wanted to talk about though. So, yay me. I can be happy now. But hopefully this is giving you something to think about. And if you like this video, please click the like button. Let your friends know what we got going on here. If you want to hear more of what I got to say, then subscribe. Turn on notifications. Find out when new videos are coming out. Trying to put them out every week. Let's see how good I do. And then if you want, leave some comments down below. I love starting dialogue. I love talking with people. I love getting topics out into the air. So leave me some comments down below, and let's start a discussion going. So until we speak again, be well, be safe, and be kind to everybody.